I first looked at the pinwheel demonstration to understand the water cycle. Through looking at the pinwheel, I am able to understand where the different parts of the water cycle are located in relation to the other parts. For example, I could see that precipitation happens from the sky and collection occurs on the ground thereafter. The pinwheel shows what direction the water cycle moves in, so I was able to learn that it moves counterclockwise according to where the parts are labeled on this particular wheel. This is important to know in order to understand the correct sequence of events that occur throughout the process. The water on the second layer of the pinwheel allowed me to see the different forms the water takes as it travels and is reused. It went from being part of a cloud to being part of a body of water to being one with the air and then back to the clouds. It showed me that the same water that is being moved around the wheel is also the same water used in each of the parts of the water cycle. Although this pinwheel does not show specific definitions, it does show a visual process of it, which allowed me to infer what the definitions of each part of the water cycle are. I can infer that precipitation is when water falls from the sky, collection is when it collects together to form a body of water, evaporation is when the water goes into the earth in the air, and condensation is when the water turns into clouds.
Moves it up and down and all around the earth. The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth. The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth. The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth.
Evaporation comes when the heat from the sun warms up all the groundwater, then it turns to water vapor. Condensation takes over, it goes up to the clouds. Water vapor cools down and it changes to a liquid now. Precipitation happens when the drops get big. It falls like rain, snow, sleet, and hail upon my head. I know it's the water cycle happening again. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation.
The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth. The water cycle.
I next listened to a song that described the names and functions of the parts of the water cycle as you guys just heard a short clip of. From this song, I learned that the water cycle means that the water is taken and used as it moves up and down and all around the earth. The song went through each part of the water cycle and explained the definition as well as showed a visual of what physically happens to the water. This video improved my understanding from the pinwheel because it explained the parts of the water cycle with definitions in words and in visuals. This allowed me to make connections between the definitions I had formed in my head from looking at the pinwheel and the actual definitions that were stated in the song. Evaporation occurs when the sun heats up the earth and turns water into water vapor, raising it into the air. Condensation is when that water collects in the air and forms as clouds. When the water vapor turns into liquid, precipitation occurs. The drops get big enough to fall from the clouds in the form of rain, snow, sleet, or hail. This song and video expanded on my initial assumptions of what the parts and functions of the water cycle are. I next looked at an elementary experiment as part of a water cycle lesson plan. Through reading the procedures involved in this water cycle lesson, I learned more about the actual functions of the water cycle. Every part of this experiment is used to symbolize a part of the earth, and together they are used to illustrate the process of the water cycle. Although this experiment did not specify definitions, it used common objects to allow me to make greater connections with the process. I was very familiar with all of the objects used and know their general functions, and so it helped me clarify what the different parts of the water cycle function as. For example, I know that ice cubes melt, and so if ice cubes eventually melt and drip back down, that helps me to understand that water can only remain in the clouds for so long before they begin to melt or precipitate back down to the earth. This demonstration expanded my knowledge on the water cycle through allowing me to make more personal connections with the parts and providing illustrations that helped me to better identify the functions of each part.